Okay, good morning, Campfire. Welcome to Low Code Campfire, February 11th, number 37. Today, the main topic is beta findings for version 119, but there's lots of good things to talk about, especially if you give topics. Going to run through the standard here. This is a weekly event that we hold that is open to all skill levels, that it's just a community gathering, and we hope that you bring something, whether it's a question or an answer, that you can help or get help from your fellow campers. We record all these editions. We're up to, this is number 37, so lots and lots of good hours of conversation. And they're all available on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe and get notified. You can use that link or links that you'll see in our emails. We have a very informal agenda. It's a meeting format, so we'll say hi and then talk about first call, what's question, what's on your mind, and we'll see contributions to our common Campfire website, but then just work through whatever's on your mind. Mute and courtesy are the guidelines. If you've got some noise going on behind you, please mute. I encourage you heavily to participate. I no longer am threatening to sing. I will show you vacation pictures. So if you don't participate, it's going to get ugly. Submit questions and topics in advance. That link is also in the emails. And then here's you can use that QR code to get to our forum to do that as well. And so with that, we'll say hello. Good morning, everyone. A lot of familiar faces.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings from sunny Florida.
Florida, Mike, you on vacation, Don?
I'm snowbirding. This is our first year of attempting to snowbird. So far, so good. The condominium apartment complex that we're in has water problems, so they shut off the water. Otherwise, I'd be on the balcony, so you would be able to see the balcony. But now I'm at the local public library, so I have a lovely picture behind me.
Maybe next week.
But maybe next week. Oh yeah, and I'll be. I was on the summit. I posted a picture somewhere. I forget where it was, some social media platform, where I'm on the balcony with my headphones and my laptop, watching the sunset while the roundtable, business roundtable, was going on last night.
Very nice. Very nice.
And you did a great job on the session that you had there on the summit as well. Thank you for being a part of that.
Well, thank you for saying so. We had a good time putting it together. It was a little bit of a scramble since I had been on vacation, but it came together. So, and I was glad to co-present with Don.
Yeah, and I learned quite a bit from Tijo's Banjaro Planet App combo session that he had as well.
Oh, good deal. I saw a snapshot from that. I didn't see that presentation, but I'll see what I can get back to. I'm still trying to catch up from being out a week. So.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So with that, first call, what's on your mind? Anybody with a burning problem want to go to the front of the line?
As long as I'm talking, and I had interrupted anyway, let me ask this. My question is more business related. I'm not sure if this is the place or if it should be at the Wednesday meetings, but was wondering what the latest is on licensing, how one licenses if they're a developer. Do they still pass on that, or do we set whatever prices we want because we're paying for the licensing as a developer? There's a free version that was discussed, and I'm not positive what exactly the details are of that. And if you could at least point me to where all that is, that'd be great.
So for the first part of that question, I think your best answer is to have an offline conversation with either sales or Bogdan to talk about whatever resale / partner things are available to you. On the free plan, this is something that has been a goal of ours for a long time. And the idea is that we want to get a version of the product, a full version of the product really, people's hands so that they can learn, experiment. I mean, it's even useful for people who have plant an app to have a free account, because you can go in and try things that you might not want to do in your primary, and work those out, work out techniques or whatever, and then use them in your production or your other systems. So that's going to become available. There's limitations on it. My understanding is it's free forever, but also there's you can't get all the full. The security model is very simple, so it really wouldn't lend itself too much to very complex websites. But from a learning, developing, or simple sites, it would be a very good plan. Bogdan, did you have anything to add to that besides having an offline conversation? Oh, okay. Does that help?
That's great. We'll do that. Thanks.
Sure. Anyone else with it? Hello, Jerry. I see you're come off mute.
I have. I'd have a couple of things I'd like to discuss quickly, if possible. Nothing burning, thank goodness. First and foremost, you're not a real programmer, guys, until you stay in your robe at 11 o'clock in the day while you're still working. I know every single one of you have done that at some point. At least I was courteous enough to put my robe on, okay? But it's been one of those kind of weeks, okay? So, you know.
Well, we appreciate that, and you know where the camera button is if you.
I do. Exactly. So 2 things today for me. I have one tiny little issue I hope that you guys can help me with, but let me tell you what I've accomplished this week. I put a question onto the community earlier in the week about trying the best way to commingle with Google Maps. I've done it a lot in my past, and Google Maps has gone through some generational changes, and they've improved some of their JavaScript and excuse me, et cetera. And so as I got tasked to revisit it, I really thought about looking at some third-party programs, and we danced around EasyDNN's maps and a few others. And one of the most common challenges that I see with any of these map programs is you can't feed them. You can put a point or plot a point, and if you want to feed them, you're feeding the map on a single page, just some static data. Whereas in my world, I want to plot all the users, a group of people, if you will, that belong to whoever's logged in. It could be customers, it could be, have you on look at it. But just imagine, I want to go drill out data, format it in such a way, and then pass it to a Google map. And the next guy that logs in, he'll get a different set of people. And whoever's logged in will only see their groups of people. Pretty simple in theory. So I just wanted to update everybody, and I'll do it again on the community. I decided to just integrate with Google Maps and do it through their normal integration and do my own thing. And I have a lot of experience at it now. So I'm offering it up. If anybody's considering or thinking of how can I use the Google APIs to put a map on my website using any of our PAA products, but I want to drill data from some of our entities or whatever and get the points plotted properly. I'm just offering it up. I have a pretty good working knowledge of that now. So that's it. I'm not seeking for help. It was just today was a breakthrough on how I communicate with them, and them being Google. And honestly, guys, just a hair of JavaScript knowledge and just understanding how the Google API thinks, it's just easier to do it yourself. I did it all in action form in a static field, punched in the JavaScript that Google wanted me to start with, and then went to work on drilling my data out into a token, place the token in the properly place in the JavaScript, run the page, and voila, we have points plotting. And by points plotting, Dale, I mean thousands of points. And
so you're seeing good performance?
Yeah, I am, and I'm using I'm experimenting with both ways with just plotting pinpoints and doing clusters. And clusters is a technology that Google offers up to consolidate a whole bunch of pinpoints into one pinpoint, depending on where you're zoomed in at. And
Yep.
I'm having great success putting 3,000 or 4,000 points on a page and not seeing much latency at all.
So
I just need to comment for a second that Jerry, I would love to see what you did, because I've recently worked with USPA, and I don't think that Jen has joined us today, right? Because I remember now she can't. But I recently worked with them to develop something that's pretty dynamic, and I'd love to see how what we did corresponds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah.
And I was just saying, since you're offering that up, I would love to work with you to get a contribution onto the site that then we can, we can all
Sure.
refer to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we could spend a good Wednesday on just interfacing with the Google Maps API, and what pitfalls you got to look for. And honestly, Patrick, if I had somebody sitting beside me saying, "Now do it like this, do this, do this," I'd have been done in a day or two. But Google, their documentation and me sometimes don't see eye to eye. I struggle with reading some of the stuff, and I think that Google means well, but I think they're talking to almost a higher tier person than me when it comes to their programming techniques.
Does anyone have any guesses as to who helped me with my project with USPA?
Go with Radu.
It was Radu. Yes.
Yeah. I wish he stayed here every day with me. But okay, so we'll move off of that unless somebody has any further questions about that. I'm here for a while, so just don't hesitate to ask. Or if we get into after the campfire, whatever we call that, where we just kind of
a little afterglow. Yeah, I see. Both Don and Mark are commenting, so I think this is a common problem, and it'd be a great one to see another solution, especially if you've kind of got a nice map for it.
Yeah, I do.
For a map, whatever.
Yeah, no pun intended. Got you. Okay. All right. So here's my question for you guys. Something is weird. Something changed technology somewhere for me. I have a form that has a multiple checkbox drop down. That's a drop down that has it's loaded with people, and you have a checkbox that you can check. So you can select 2 or 3 people, or 5 or 10 people, or all people, or no people. And obviously, what its goal is to build a comma delimited list of your value, which is just my user ID in this particular case. Works perfect. But I'm doing a redirect back to the page, passing that variable, which is a list of user IDs, by the way, and I'm passing it back to the query string. So I'm expecting query string to look like something like user ID equals 23, 24, 25, 26. The page that I'm on says, oh, hell no. That's an incorrect, unformatted string. I get it. I see that. But other pages on my website, particularly the homepage, seem to accept it. So in my testing, I was like, wow, I've done this many times before. What's going on? So there's a setting or something on this particular page that just will not allow the URL to have a query string that has a comma delimited list of values. That's my question of the day. If obviously I can not use the query string, go into sessions or cookies and do it a different way. But I just thought I would ask first this morning, has anybody else seen this before, where the query string has gotten strange? It used to work and now it's not because maybe a newer version of DNN or PAA? I'll stop talking now.
Usually this is, of course, has something to do with the URL writer in DNN, that it doesn't understand what the query string is and how it can pretty format it. So I would look at that area.
Yeah, and I thought about the rewrite that might be in the config file, but that would apply to all pages. oddly enough, I can go to my homepage and just up in the URL, just literally type ? User ID equals 23, 24, and it loves it just fine.
So
I go to other page, no.
So same site, you're getting different results on different pages.
Exactly.
Which makes you think there's something on that page, whether it's some JavaScript that's looking at the query string that may be blowing up.
Something
Or
You can test that with going to a clean page.
also, you might try using the no skin command string to eliminate the skin and module.
Exactly.
If you try to put it directly in the URL on that page, what happens? The URL rewrites itself, or it just ignores the data?
It blows the page up, and I get some red ink error saying it's an improperly formatted string, and that's not coming from PAA. That's just coming from DNN.
Do you have URL rewriter going on your site?
Is it only the home page where it does work? It doesn't work on any other page in the site, only on the home page.
I think that's fair to say, because the home page I tested and it worked fine, and the other pages were not working fine.
Yeah, because I wonder if that's because the home page is the root and there's no URL rewriting going on. That as other people have said, there's something going on with URL rewriter, but the fact that it doesn't have to rewrite anything on the home page is why it works. Have you tried doing the old-fashioned default ASPX tab equals whatever the tab number is, and doing the old-fashioned query string way of referring to a page?
I will be glad to do that. I did try new style and old-fashioned style on the query string that I'm trying to pass. I did try and rebuild the URL to be to the page name .aspx, then with a question mark in my query string on it. But I did not replace the tab ID and the tab value. I left them with the front slashes as usual. And so
you could go back to DNN2 and do it that way. The other way might be to actually pretty format the query string yourself, with the slashes all the way through. So / separate your values, and that might help it.
My goal is to have the one variable, the user ID, sending back a comma delimited list to a SQL query that is using the string split function to isolate just what records am I really trying to go grab.
I'm thinking of the way that the URL rewriter works, and if you prettify it when it receives that one with the / slashes, it will then unencode it back into the key value pairs of a query string, because we've done that before, that you can if you've got user ID equals 54, you can do user ID / 54, and it will understand that is user ID equals 54.
I understand that, but what if it's user ID equals 54?
Well, and you say the comma separate. Yeah, that will be something to try. But I'm just thinking. I think the culprit is the URL rewriter, and it's tricking the URL rewriter into not doing that parsing that's causing your error.
And
Understood.
Jerry, did you to rename the parameter as well, the query string parameter, to see maybe it's some collision?
As in, like, change the query string variable name from user ID to something else?
Exactly.
I'll certainly go try that. That's an easy one to try out for sure.
I remember we had this trouble with a parameter a couple of years ago that was used by the single sign-on from DNN that was not even used, by some web DAV, I think, connector or something like that. And if you had a parameter like that, it will trigger some logic in DNN that would break the sites.
All right, let's talk about that just for a second. I think Bogdan just solved our issue. I think my challenge is I'm using the term user ID, and it's freaking out DNN and or other things because I just changed it to X on a page that was failing and it accepted it just fine. Thank you, Bogdan. That's
Perfect.
So yeah, just kind of put that in your notes, guys. Think of user ID as like a key word that
It is. Yep.
you can't jerk it around too bad. I guess, passing in user ID with a single value is perfectly fine. But the second you go 23, 43,
It's trying to do something with that.
it's trying to do something much deeper than I really care to describe. Okay, problem solved.
And
I think it depends on what you're doing because I'm running DNN 991. I just tried it right now. I did user ID equals 23, 22. Perfectly fine. Doesn't crash. Are you using a skin that potentially has a also a module built in with it for management?
Well, it's fair to say I can tell you I'm using EasyDNN's Ozone 2 latest version, Bootstrap 4-ish, and on this particular site, I don't think I have any EasyDNN modules on there. So, but I'll
because I know I just know that in the past I have seen where when you add a skin, a lot of the skins, like I use dnngo.net, their skins, you have to not only install their skin, but you install a module to manage their skin. That module is constantly running on every page. So they may have on that particular module something that is very sensitive to the keyword, the token name or query string name, user ID, in which case, you add that, then it's going to crash. If that's not a real rewriter issue.
I think we could burn up the entire hour just trying to figure out why. And I think I'm just going to go forward with the solution and not, but Ben, thank you for that. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to use Porto back in the day, and and I would see all kinds of weird issues like that. So, and Porto didn't play nice with DNN Sharp modules at the time, so I abandoned on that idea. But
I was just thinking also it could be a token somewhere that is looking for either the session or a URL variable to get the user ID, and if you put the user ID in the query string, then it's picking that up instead of the session.
Okay. All right. I'll experiment with it, and if I feel like if I discover something amazing, I'll be sure and chime back in later in this meeting. But meanwhile, I'm going to just listen in. I'm going to turn my camera off and go get dressed, and just listen to everything everybody else got to say. And thank you everybody for that input. I appreciate that. And Dale and Bob, these campfires are just awesome. I hope we can do this forever. There's not many companies that sit around on a Friday morning and just have some of the top tier programmers just jump in and bang things out like this. It's just amazing that we're doing this. So kudos to you guys.
Well,
thank you very much.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I certainly smile when you come to something like this. You get 4 or 5 suggestions and a quick answer. I've banged my head against the wall enough that I appreciate when we can do something like this.
Absolutely. Okay. Next.
So I wanted to mention there were no new contributions to Campfire. The last one was I had put the event-driven architecture thing in, and I think I mentioned that last week. So that's it with that. I hope to take Radu's techniques from Wednesday and get those in there. So maybe I'll have those for next week. Bogdan, are you ready to?
That site.
Mark raising his hand there.
Oh, sir.
So Dale, I just wanted to mention I did alter the contribution site a little bit while you were gone. I chose my opportunity. I did a little thingy so you could click on a contributor's name and it would give you a list of all their contributions.
This one?
I can't see yet. I'm kind of covered up.
Well, I got.
If it works, then the answer is yes. If it doesn't work, then no.
Uh, but thank you for jumping in and helping to make it better. Yep, contributions by, absolutely. I love that. So you're on a contribution and you can click in and see Ben and all the different things that he's been into. That's great.
I love seeing that Dale uses RoboForm, and I'm not the only one that uses it.
Oh yeah, I don't know what other solutions there are, but it's I've been using it for a long time, and to be able to have all my passwords with me on my cell phone is huge. So
Exactly.
to have all that just follow you around, and also picking out the amazing encrypted passwords so that nothing is used in the same. You don't use your social security number in every password, and everyone has it. So. Okay, so Campfire, there was a contribution. Excellent. Let's see. Next, Bogdan, are you ready to either talk about Community 119 or maybe feature requests? I know that was something we have mentioned as coming up.
Sure, sure. So I'm not sure, Ben, if you want me to show it or do you want to show it?
You can show it. That's fine.
I mean, I would like you to show it. So.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll do it.
Because I think Ben helped put all of this in place. So it would be.
Hold on one second.
Imagine this group will be excited about a place to put features.
Yeah. I know Mark has a list of his own. He built a system to keep his own list.
Let's see. Did I pick the right screen?
Yep.
Is everyone seeing
the
community
portal? We can see
portal?
the community portal, yes.
Okay. I have 4 screens, so sometimes I'm like, wait, what did I just pick? All right. So everyone should see this part here. There's new item at the top. 1 item in there right now. But basically, long-awaited feature requests. So if you put in any search criteria here, it's not going to be effective immediately until you hit the search button. That way it gives you time so it's not constantly updating as you're typing. Otherwise, all of these guys here, these drop downs are immediate. So the moment you select anything, it's going to do an immediate change. There we go. Took a little bit of a delay. We have a list of all the modules. So, I basically have everything in there. You could see here the top contributors and recent. This is using actually Gravatar pictures for profiles. So if you happen to have a Gravatar account, it's automatically gonna find it based off of your email, and your good old profile picture will be up there. Obviously, it's giving you some information here. So this second one here is always going to tell you what the topic is. This first item here is going to tell you the status of what the actual request is at. And then again, you've got your replies and your votes. Once you click into it, you got your basic information up here of the general info regarding it. There's a voting option. It's a toggle. So click it once, you add your vote, click it again, you'll subtract your vote. That's basically the limit of it. You have the text of the actual item here, and then you have a list of replies. So you can put in your reply here and then post it. Now, if you are the poster, you're not going to see it, but there's also a subscribe option. If you're not the poster, you can subscribe to it. The poster is always automatically subscribed. And the moment you add a reply, you automatically get subscribed as well.
So subscribe means you're going to get notifications when something
Correct.
happens on that particular item.
Right. So you'll get an email letting you know that someone posted a reply. And that's pretty much it. Again, there is, statuses, like I said, the PAA admins are the ones that will be able to change it. When you post something, it's automatically always going to start as proposed, and then it'll move along the track from there.
So just for fun, can you hit the add request button? See what a new one looks
Pretty
like.
simple.
Yep,
Just
great.
what's your idea? It's just a real brief. That's your title. You select the category, the module, and area, and then put in whatever your text is, and that's it.
Sounds like a great start. I can imagine. I mean, so sitting where I sit and knowing that we do things on a DevOps system, I could see wanting to link this internally to our works back and forth, so that when we take something on, that we know to reply and keep this up to date and things like that. I'm sure this will grow, is I guess what I'm saying, but sounds like a really good start.
Yep. Yeah, and let me know if you want. I could always put an API for integration to DevOps. So if you want to put a reply there that sends the reply also to the API here, it can add it as a reply to the actual ticket.
Yep.
So that way it's not a situation of having a reply there and then copy something.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, absolutely. We'll use it a little bit, figure out how we can get better at it, but it makes sense. So the hope then is that if we see energy around replies and votes around particular things, that's something that we will use to bring to the top of the feature request.
Correct. Yep. I figure the votes is a great way to kind of get the pulse of the community, find out what they are into.
We have a PayPal integration too, right? So if you want to put my email address connected to that can move it to the top faster too.
Hey, I want to chime in and say I am in particular very excited about seeing this being added. So thank you very much, Ben and Bogdan and Dale and everybody who worked on it. I'm looking forward to fill in some of those ideas in there. And I would like to preface that by saying that if I or we put something in there, I think that it could be interpreted as being a very well-intended, what we think is a good idea for improvement, not a criticism.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Cool. So I'm happy we got to this stage. We actually used to have something like this in the DNN Sharp world, I think around 2012, and it worked well. We just lost it when we changed the software. It worked pretty well, and I think let's add content here. We'll figure out what else we need. This is something that probably we'll iterate a couple of times over until we mature it. But I think the content is the first stage of it.
Okay, I'm just telling you, I'm adding it to the list of things to bring up. What's new on the feature request?
Oh yeah, nice one. So
we can bring them here and talk about them a little bit.
So I'm not sure to what extent should we bring other items as well to this board, because, for example, we have a long backlog internally that we find out from different channels, from customers, from projects. So maybe some of those items are worth being here just to have the community help with the prioritization of it. So we could be posting items here as well.
Well, it would be good to see something of the backlog. That would be interesting.
Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, we do have a product roadmap that is not going very far ahead in the future, but it will grow bigger and bigger. So I'm thinking the product roadmap maybe should be in here at some point, so to see what's coming in next release, in 2 releases from now. I think that will be very interesting for everyone.
Yeah, and of course, this isn't a promise that we're going to get something done, but we do want to understand what we want the product to reflect, what your needs are. Right? So.
It's really good, really good. Thank you for doing that.
Very welcome. More to come, more to come.
Thanks, Ben, for putting it in place for us.
All right, so I grabbed that screen share back. Did Bogdan, do you have anything with version 119 and community and
Yep.
perhaps?
So I think the beta program had a couple of items. I think Jim reported a couple, so thanks a lot, Jim. I saw I think one or two from Roberto as well. Those from Jim's, I think they were really helpful. We already fixed one of them. With it was the one affecting the when you install the module instead of clicking the upgrade module, which I guess for the beta it's always installing the app builder module, which of course didn't trigger upgrading the dependencies, so he was running in all sorts of issues. But in the meantime, we fixed it so it will pop up that screen with required dependencies. So that will be in this final release. He had a problem with default portal ID, but we weren't able to reproduce it. So I think the dev team will get in touch with Jim. Other than that, seems pretty stable. I mean, the Bootstrap 3 part, what was there before seems pretty stable, nothing broke. But then, of course, on the Bootstrap 5 part, it's still experimental. So I'm sure there will be a lot of things to uncover. So if you still want to get involved, now that DNN Summit is finished, I think we still have a couple of days. I think we did it for until Sunday, so it's always minus 1 day from the release. And other than that, we'll go with the release on Monday.
So I've been running around like a crazy man trying to catch up from being gone a week, but finally yesterday I got a chance to run through. I do when you guys submit tickets and I have to do a reproduction of it or need to, I build that on a test website of mine, this one here, and so I always catalog those so that I can do regression testing. If we get something that works, I want to be able to just run through it and say, yep, it still works. So I ran through my 50 regression tests yesterday, in addition to all the work that the QA department does. I mean, theirs is far more important than what I'm doing, but I like to go back and test things in that way. And I ran through all those and 100% no regression, at least on my tests. So that's a good sign too. The only fight I had was with Google and Gmail. I use our POP and IMAP triggers. I test both of those, and it turned out to be something on the Google side. It likes you to in your settings where you're allowing a POP trigger, you've got to say where it starts sending information, and sometimes that seems to just, the fact that I don't use that for a month at a time, I'm only using it to test it. It seems to float away and require work on the security side. But other than that, the trigger, the ability to read emails, was working just fine. So just takes a while to work through all those. So I don't know what your method is for doing all those, but for me, I document what the feature is and put a link to my page where I do that, and it lets me run through them in a couple hours. All right. What else? We did feature requests, so that's good. Did this one happen to get covered last time? I don't know if it was on the list, but I don't know. I haven't listened to last week's yet. Matt, this was yours if you're available.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Dale,
we did.
Yeah, I wasn't able to be here, so.
Yeah, I don't think this happened last week.
Yeah.
I remember.
Okay, so CRM best practices working example. Do you want to expand a little bit about what you're asking, Matt, or just
Yeah,
go to it?
Sure. So if you've got basically, very straightforward, issue is you're keeping things like the company name, you're keeping some extra profile information, maybe their job title, all kinds of personal demographic, and then you'd like to have it all tied together at one entity, if I may say, a company level. What's the best way to do that? Is that to use the DNN profile fields? What I've done in the past is use the profile fields, which are painful to get used to, but they seem to function well and they're supported. And then tying them all together, what I've done in the past is created essentially a phantom user, which represents the parent entity, the organization, and link them all to that using the affiliate ID, and then been able to manage essentially every member, if you would, or every employee, depending upon the context, in one spot, and know how they all connect together. Is there a better way to do that? What's other people's experiences and so on?
Yeah, well, the problem with the profile properties is that they are not easily put into a list of properties belonging to a user. You all have to pivot the table, so that makes it sometimes kind of hard to do a list of properties for a person.
Yes, you are correct, Peter. And what I've done in that case is I came across this is going back a while ago, what is it? Is it pivot, a SQL pivot, where you basically can go in and create a virtual table, and that actually works good. I've taken that and put that inside of a stored procedure, so I can pass the stored procedure whatever parameters I need, like the account number, quote unquote, if you would, and then it will go off and gather everybody in that is associated with that account, along with the relevant profile fields that I'm looking for. And that actually works pretty well, because you only have to do it once and you keep reusing it.
I've been there also. You do that once, but it's not fun starting it up, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, no. I can relate to that as well.
I can relate. Pivots are not fun to write.
Yeah, no, they're not.
No.
And I feel like every time I have to do one, I have to relearn it.
Yes, exactly, Patrick. I did it last week again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, if you have a stored procedure, you have to have a temporary table, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What do you guys
good
think?
Programmers know how to search.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it.
we wimped out. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we wimped out and just created a table for user information with user ID, the key for the type of information, a large string field, who updated it last and when they updated it. We had planned to do it to keep all the versions of all the updates. In the end, we didn't, but we've used that as a mechanism, and that was it. The nice thing is it's very easy to add new categories of information. Some of the more obscure things, we have to collect government required information about students, things like were you in care, have you been in the armed forces, what's your gender preference, that sort of thing. So and those lists keep changing all the time, so we can just add another key and add another value. So very simple to query, no pivots.
That ties into what I was going to ask a question of the group, and I was going to say, so sometimes what we've seen is that you create an entity that's connected to, in PlanetNav, you create an entity that has a connection to the user table, and I was just going to put it out there. What do you think the disadvantages are? And I think, Jim, you were saying that maintaining a history of changes is one disadvantage. Is that? Yeah.
And also the user profile fields. Okay, you can extend them, but it's a bit clunky to extend them.
So just another, kind of a pro and con of using the user profile fields. Those are generally accessible to the end user to modify, right? So
Yes.
if your use case is you want everybody to self-service, then that's a good use case for it. You don't have to build anything. If your use case is that you want tight control over what those things say, then it may not suit.
Yeah. We have a mix of some things are required, some things aren't required, some things are only required in certain circumstances, and the profile, the built-in profile doesn't really give you that that sort of flexibility, and it's trivial to build that sort of thing for a table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. From a, this is a tangent, but what you were talking about, Jim, about having a history, it would be very easy to have a sharp scheduler job, for example, just look for, when this table updates to grab the changes and push them into a history. So it would be a pretty straightforward way to be able to track those changes.
Yeah, it was more because these don't change very often. I'm not sure a scheduler, it would be an event, when it changes, take the old value, put it over here, keep the record. We were just the plan was, because we had an updated value, just add another row to the table, and the table just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you're looking at what the current values are, you just take the one, the most recent one for that person in that category. But if you ever needed to, you could go back. But in the end, we decided not to. It's not that big a deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that and probably done that both ways. What you were talking about, adding rows versus having a separate table, and either will work. One of the techniques is to turn the row into JSON and then just stuff that JSON into the alternate table. So you have it for historical purposes, and you don't have to manage what happens if we add columns and a lot of management to it, right? You just save the current state. Lots of things that can be done with that, but yep. I think there's some personal preference that plays in there, but I like having the control over the entities or tables versus having it be reliant on the DNN setup. Matt, did that get you any closer to what you were hoping to learn?
Yes and no. I mean, basically, well, first of all, thank you everybody for your input. But I think the answer is it's not necessarily clear cut. It's probably use case dependent. Obviously, one of the nice things, if it works for your circumstances, is to have the user do self-management. And once you write that view once, you pretty much can, recycle it over and over again. It's really straightforward. So yeah, I guess it's probably a use dependent answer. So thank you, everybody.
Sure. As part of the presentation that Bogdan and I did at the summit about breaking the monolith, talked some about integrating external CRMs or using an external CRM. So this is really maybe a little different topic than what you were asking about in the first place, doing it within the product. But internally, we kind of told the story about how we had a CRM. We even expanded the CRM. We lost some of the prettiness of the CRM in a event. It was before my time. It wasn't my fault. And but now we're using HubSpot, that you using best of breed software and plugging in what you need to connect. So that's another possible scenario for CRM.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and when I said CRM, that should have been in lowercase. It's really not CRM. It's just managing user information, I guess, more broadly speaking.
Yep, good. All right, we're going to call that one answered. And thank you, Matt, for, by the way, you loaded us up at the beginning of the year with 10 questions, and so it gives us something to move on and talk about. But I'm happy to go any direction that this wants to. But you also asked a question: Glyphicons versus FrontAwesome, and
Yeah, I think that's been answered. FrontAwesome, Glyphicons are going away.
okay. All right. I know we had some discussion internally about whether we're loading these or not, and automatically, and I think we landed on that we are for pages that use that. I don't know that that's relevant to this discussion.
Covered this one too.
Good. I'm glad we got it. And I was just going to note on that too that Radu mentioned in his part 2 of what we're doing from the JavaScript stuff, which was a great one, I thought, on Wednesday, was that we're going to be tackling multi-part forms and as part of his example for JavaScript API stuff. So that's not nested and dynamic, but multi-part is, I think, going to be of interest as well.
Yeah, I have a question for the group, if it's okay.
Please.
I'd like to know if anyone's been successful throwing content into a DNN text editor field through JavaScript or jQuery. I'll state that I know it's difficult. I've been trying to do it because it's in an iframe. That makes it more difficult. I'll also say I found out there's a way to change the iframe into a div, but it requires quite a bit of work. So has anyone else been able to throw content into that through JS? It's okay if the answer is no. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Which rich text editor are you using?
It's the DNN text editor. So, sorry.
The DNN,
It's
right.
CK editor.
CK editor. Yeah, because we tended not to use CK editor, partly because of the complexity it brings.
I tried the Trumbly wagon. I don't know how to say that. I tried that editor, and there was a reason why I couldn't continue to use it. I'm trying to remember what that reason was, but it had a reason that just kind of kicked it out. Which brought me back to the CK editor. I know it is more complex, but I can control which toolbars are added, and that is a feature that I will take advantage of. So,
yeah, the Trum blah 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 is you can control the editors, but if there's a particular the toolbars, but if there's a particular thing, yeah, you're a bit stuck. But no, that although we can't pronounce it, it's the one we've tended to use because we typically give people bold and bullets, and that's about it. And you can do that quite easily.
Yeah, I agree. In this case, I think I'm going to be needing more formatting than that. Yeah.
So internally, whether it's right or wrong, we pronounce it Trumbowig.
Trumbowig.
That's how I've heard it. And then there are definitely some bad behaviors, or from my perspective, I'm not kicking dust on anybody else's product, but there are some things that are annoying about that. So from a support standpoint, I've seen, for example, that it puts paragraph tags around things that you would think it would not put paragraph tags around, and then
I think that was it right there. Yeah.
But also, I've seen some odd behavior around hyperlinking, where the hyperlink ends up as the first, wherever you are, the hyperlink, if you're doing Control K, ends up as the first part of the text. It doesn't land where you think it should land. So there's a couple of things, but that's
I
generally.
saw that as well. Yeah, and that together pushed me back towards something else.
I'm surprised that you went with the DNN text editor. I mean, I use it myself, but I've had a lot of problems with that too, especially what Dale was saying about adding the P tags around things and basically reformatting some of the stuff you write. I ended up extending the CK editor a little bit. There's a section where you can define protected codes. And I created one called protected, a tag, which doesn't exist, but I just made my own. So anytime I put something in that editor, I put protected on top, close the protected tab, put everything in there so it doesn't touch what's in between those two tags.
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, it's that DNN text editor has bit me more often than I care to admit.
Is there another library, another rich text library that might be better, especially one that lives as a div somewhere?
The only thing I can suggest, it's not going to be anywhere near as pretty and extensible, but depending on what you're doing, there's also, if you haven't taken a look at it, the code mirror add-on. Basically, it's a large text field. That's all it is, large text area. And you're applying the code mirror on top of it with whatever stylings you want. So if you want to be writing Java code, or you want to be writing VB code or SQL, you apply the correct codes to it and it will format and colorize and all that other stuff for you.
You can see it in action on the SQL console in Plantinep.
Well, thanks for that plug, Patrick. So help me if you can with housekeeping. Did you guys cover this one? Benjaro last week? Yes?
Yes.
All right, then I'll get that out of the list. And in which case, we're kind of hitting the end of our hour. If there's anybody, any last thoughts or and if not, we'll get together next week. And of course, we're going to stop the recording and hang around a few minutes as well for Afterglow, Embers, whatever we're calling it.
I have a question on the PDF generate.
Yes, sir.
There's some tabs or check boxes in there that say like, oh, put this in landscape mode, but it's a checkbox. Is there a JavaScript to overwrite that, or a way to overwrite that when you make the call? So you could, depending on what report you're trying to output, that you can call that.
I don't think there is any way to override that, but you could have two PDF actions, right? And
that's what I was gonna. That was my workaround, was to, okay, it's in a workflow, so I'll just test for it and put it. But before I did that, I thought I'd pass it out to the group, because so many times they go, hey, you just do this.
Yeah, I wanted to visualize this a little bit. Not that it's, I think Ronan's answer is going to be the right one, but I wanted to see it.
yeah. The problem is that we don't have like supports expression on checkboxes. So I think that's what would have solved the problem here.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going. So
Orientation landscape checkbox.
oh yeah. Yeah, so if this was expression tokenizable, that kind of thing, that would solve that particular need. And especially when you start, if you were in a situation where, you know, you wanted different options, different times, you know, the combinations of them. I mean, orientation versus, you know, landscape versus portrait is just one permutation, but you start getting into a lot of permutations with grayscale and paper size and whatever that could be. Annoying. So, yep, I understand the problem, but there you go.
Just out of curiosity, in that particular action, the generate PDF, instead of it being checkboxes, would it be possible to, because if checkboxes aren't expression aware, could those be changed to drop down true false with expression aware?
Yes, that would be a quick solution.
Right. And, you know, I figure instead of making checkboxes aware and figuring that out, if we can just change it to true false, and then if you want to create your own expression that relates to true false, then that should suffice.
Oh, another feature.
Excellent idea for the feature request list.
I will add it right now.
I suspect one of the challenges with that is that it's not universal, to my knowledge. Like the PDF action has some checkboxes, and a lot of other actions are going to have checkboxes. It's not going to be. It's in each of those places, not a global type setting. So, am I telling the truth, Bogdan? Is that it's not just a one size fixes all thing?
Yep. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this fix would only fix the generate PDF particular action.
Correct. Okay. Well, with that, we'll end this episode and talk again next week. Thank you all for attending.